Don't stop, stop,
Yo, what's going on, guys? Sport back with another breakdown video. Today we're going to be looking at my new song Don't Stop that just released on my Too Fast EP on Badmouth Records. So yeah, let's get right into it. Here's the project file. Drop 2 is definitely like hybrid trap, but drop 1 is more of a I guess a breakbeat type thing, like Night Punk or Godlands. I've been listening to them a lot recently, so this first drop was definitely inspired by them. And the second one, I had to go a little crazy for the trap drop. But I'll go ahead and play it here from the build if you haven't heard it yet, but you should definitely go check out the EP. So here it is.
don't stop, stop,
Alright, sweet. Yeah, let's get into it here. So yeah, like I said, I'm really proud of how this song came together. But I think it's best if I just go chronologically. So we're going to start intro, verse, build, and then get to the drop. So first thing we're going to hear, also I should mention, I'm going to try to go faster than my last one because I did not intend for that last breakdown to be 50 minutes. So the first sample you hear, or the first sound you hear here is this like kind of lead in. Check this. Now I'll use this sample a bunch throughout the song, just chopping it up. Like here too. Doing little reverb throws on it, but this original sample, you could see here, it's stretched to 999 BPM. The original one sounds like this, just from some Moon Boy pack. And I just stretched the shit out of it, put it on texture mode. Thought it sounded cool. For processing, overdrive, I love doing overdrive on vocals, especially like chants and stuff that we'll get into. Clean space rack, which I went over in my last video, but basically it sidechains the wet signal to the dry signal, so your dry vocals are always playing and they have the space they need, but when they're kind of ducking out of the way, see, when the vocal's like done playing, that's when the volume of the wet signal will come in, and it's just reverb and delay, that kind of thing. Alright, so that's the first thing you hear. Then with that, it's going to be like obviously some reverses, some lead-ins. I'm going to play the intro here and breakdown all together because they kind of flow into each other.
don't stop.
Start things off with this kick. I actually changed the kick at the fourth bar just because it worked better with the sub that I brought in. And then you're going to notice it's just a bunch of atmospheres and kind of ambient sounds all working together. Laser. Another thing you'll notice is I pan a lot of stuff left and right, just to kind of open up the stereo field. This one just has a bit of chorus. Just another down sweep. I'm gonna hold. Yeah, this is something I do often, just using a Labs string and putting it on like a really high octave just to hold a tension note pretty much. And this sport rack you see here, nothing fancy. It's kind of just my version of a fat rack. I find that most fat racks out there do a little too much for the style of music I make. So this is like just really quick. Whenever I need to slightly make a sound louder, I just throw this rack on. It's just compressor, saturator on soft sine mode. So saturator, when you load it in, it's on analog clip, which sounds all right, but this soft sine really brings out some harmonics. Fresh air, which they might have discontinued this plugin, but really good for high end. And then I just have a no sub EQ that I tailor as needed. That's pretty heavily reverbed. I'm just having this drone thing in the background. Starting to tease these cowbells here. And I'm pretty sure these notes are just A and A sharp. The song is in D minor, no surprise there. A couple other cowbells here, teasing in. Right, and then we got this like on the first impact of the song. It's this brass from Serum. Pretty cool, just kind of shaping it a little bit at the end with an EQ. And then this house pluck bass that's following that A sharp whole way through. And yeah, a lot of this stuff is going to be kind of automated for where in the song it needs to fit. You'll notice I cut out a lot of low mids, and then with this one I'm also, you can see right here, so that's the envelope that I'm automating to, or I think it's a sustain that I'm automating to basically make the notes longer and longer. Same thing for the filter, I'm automating that to reveal more and more high end. And then just like a sub hit kind of underneath everything, and then this like extra hit here, just like there's no reason for this to be here, but I don't know, I added it and it sounded cool. It's playing like a different note, it's like an E or something. Oh, ooh, I don't know, kind of gets you ready for the next section, teasing basically the vocal of the entire song. Don't stop. Trying to start teasing it here super quietly.
Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop.
With auto pan on it and the clean space rack. And then what I have here panned to the right and to the left are pads for my sample pack. An ah and an ooh for each ear. Pretty nice. And then this is a good tip. I don't remember where I learned this, but having these like super high-end stabs. So I have that one, and then I like that. You don't even notice it until I show it to you. Like you wouldn't notice this in the song, but helps fill out the tonality of the high end, because I think with like having a bunch of hats and atonal things in the high end, it's nice to have something that, and this isn't super high end, but you know, it's like hitting above 1K. Yeah, so that's the intro. Now the next section is more or less the same with just the addition of some drums. Definitely also a little more action for the vocals, so
Don't stop. Stop.
and then just doing little like chops of the vocal like this. And then yeah, like right before the build.
Don't stop.
I'm automating the auto pan from being like super wide around the ears to closing back in.
Don't stop.
And this one just kind of throws it. So we went down And then for this part, it's like pa pa pa, and then it, you know, kind of just gets out of the way like that. Yeah, but other than that, like I said, more or less the same for the sidechain group. We're just gonna start introducing some risers. But the big thing, I guess, for this section is the addition of some drums. And you know, that's where the build starts. But this one is especially cool. This is like just a random break beat. But I'm throwing the delay and the reverb like a lot. So it's giving it that. I'm only using like this first hit of it, right? It keeps going, but I'm saving that for later parts in the song, like right here. And for here, I'm just throwing it to the sides. Same thing there. And, you know, just a cymbal. And I guess the one other difference for this section is the sub and Reese and like the labs is going to be doing like this D to A back and forth. Brass is doing the same thing. And last but not least, introducing an intro Reese here.
Don't stop.
Alright, so we've made it to the build. I'll go ahead and play the drums group here first. Cool. So, yeah, just a kick, gets faster, simple stuff there. And then I mute it and put it on this other track to sweep back in. The only reason for that is because this channel is sidechained, and I didn't want to sidechain when it comes back, you know, much quieter. Just like a clap snare thing. Super fast snare here that gets louder and louder. And then once like that last kick goes away, for this last bar and a half, the shifter goes up to 250. Also, you'll notice, so this clip is consolidated, so it's all one now, but what I did was for every 4 snares, the first one hit a little louder, so it's like ta 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 ta. You could kind of hear it there. And then this auto pan is just tightening it up at this very last part. And then just a complementary snare here for this last part. Cool. And then on the drum group, just a EQ, taking away the lows, taking away the highs as the build progresses. Then under the drums is just going to be a bunch of risers. As well as the cowbells and like the funk type sounds starting to fade out. And then also in this section, we're going to start teasing like the actual drop sounds. So it's like this cowbell and like this little thing here. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, I just kind of chopped up this sound, made it, faded it back in, made it an octave higher. Impact, and then like another drop sound that's being teased here and, you know, slowly auto filtered in is this melody from the response part of the drop. Which I'll get to in the drop of like the processing and what it's made up of and stuff, but pretty cool. I actually used my kalimba. I recorded it into my phone and then put it in Ableton, so that's cool. This is like a real life instrument that I used in my song. Some more vocals in this section too.
Don't stop.
So this, the don't stop, 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 that's going to be reverbed out right here. And as that fades out, this fades in. Which is it's just this vocal thrown into granulator. Froze that and then did some shifter to it to kind of turn it into a build. So with that, I think we're ready for the drop.
Don't stop, stop, stop.
All right, so let's start with the drums. They sound full and maybe like a lot's going on, but really it's just a handful of layers. So obviously up top we got our drop kick. This OS kick. Bit of transient shaper and taking away some of the highs here. Also like clipping super hard going into my master, which I'll get to the master at the end of the video, but I have a really simple one now. I kind of changed how I do things. Cool tip here. This is more of a mixing tip, but I like to layer a bit of white noise with my kicks if I'm going to be clipping them into the master. It's almost like it masks any unwanted distortion. Cool. And then the snare here. It's just a barely alive snare from Splice. Transient shaper, a bit heavier, tiny bit of the sustain down, and then peaking a little 4 decibels on 440, which is an A. And that's because a lot of the drop notes are A, and the song is in D minor, and A is like 7 semitones off of a D. So I don't know. It's just, I really like snares and even kicks in A. I think it's like the best note. So I really wanted to accentuate that peak. And then this cool chain here, I learned this from watching an Excellent Sound video where they had Night Punk in the studio. And he was using like the Valhalla reverb. I think it's Valhalla Room. I don't have that one, so I used Ableton. But basically, the first chain is dry. The second chain is full wet for the reverb. So it's like this. But the important thing here is the K is all the way down, and I have a pre-delay of 115 milliseconds. The reason I did 115 milliseconds is because if I wanted the reverb of the snare not to hit at the same time as the actual snare, right? I wanted it to hit like right there. So I don't know if that's like a 16th note or a 32nd note, but so I wanted it to hit like that, but I wanted the second one to be reverb. So you could kind of hear it there. What you can do in Ableton is select the amount of time. And if you look, I can't like move my mouse because it'll go away. But I'll put like a circle on the screen. If you look in the bottom left, it says duration 0.00.115. So I know that this length of time is 115 milliseconds. And that's why I have that here. Cool. For the perks is this breakbeat that I chopped up. With this like clap going back and forth. A hat and just some pretty simple hat loops, and then like, you know, your classic house sounding hat. Shifted it down 50 hertz to make it sound more in key. And yeah, that's pretty much the drums. For the second, or for the response to the drop, I've added this wide ride for my sample pack. I love this sound. Like you could see, I guess the right channel is just a little delayed, so it makes it sound wide. And I use this layer in like all of my songs because it's like, it kind of just hugs the rest of the drums. Like it encapsulates everything else. So if we listen to the perk group with and without it. Now without it. So much colder, you know, it's like giving it a warm hug. Cool, so let's start to get into, I'll leave the drums on for context as I'm adding layers here, but before we get into like the basses and the cool sounds, I do a lot of like panned background elements, so like this, and then, you know, this detune layer. So now that one's on the left ear. Then of course, you know, you'll have the vocal.
Don't stop, 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 stop.
Taking away the lows of it, reverbing, you know, that kind of thing. And then like, yeah, I already talked about this stab.
Stop, 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 stop.
So yeah, having a lot of background stuff, super wide, like left and right.
Stop, 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 stop.
Like that with some sub would already sound like a pretty good section, pretty full. So then the rest of it is just adding in these little basses, I guess. So let's play the sidechain group here. Cool. First thing is first, let's do the sub. So we're going from from A to C. So pretty big jump there in notes. What you'll notice here is that I have a slight amount of pitch bend, just very slight, kind of tapering off of the C. It's like, and then much more in this part of it. So the sub layers is just like literally a sine wave, and then this white noise layer also has a lot of harmonics. I should unfreeze this because doing something kind of cool here with the EQ. This gives it like kind of a throaty, like wah, wow. So yeah, I do that a little bit with like mid basses and stuff. Gives it a little bit of movement, and then this EQ is obviously just to accommodate for the hi-hats and such. So that's the sub. On top of the sub, we're gonna have a bunch of like little synth or cowbells just doing little hits. So that's gonna be, well, this is nice crunchy layer there underneath everything, but the real movement comes from this group. So with all these layers, you can see they're not all playing at once. It's more of, in my brain, it's like I want them to be having a conversation. So these guys are saying something, and then this guy up here is responding. And notice how also these are panned a little to the left and this one's panned a little bit to the right, just to try to make it a little more realistic or human, that they're just talking to each other. So like, let's just look at two layers, these two. This one says all this. So it's like he's talking, he's saying, hold on, let me respond. Then they're both kind of arguing here, but in a nice way. And then in this part, you know, this sound has its moment to shine. And I think that's important, because if I just duplicated this exact same pattern across 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, however many sounds, you know, that would have been a little boring. And this is like kind of like a cheat code for making, like, if you have trouble making variations or different flows to different sections, just like remove one sound here, put it later, and vice versa. You know, you could see at one point this is all disabled or deactivated, but at one point I probably did layer all this. It just doesn't hit as hard. You kind of want to wait to reveal whatever it is you're revealing. But yeah, we could go through these layers. So here's that kalimba. Let me pull out the kalimba. The kalimba does not get enough love, man. Listen to this. It's a beautiful sound. So I played the C note, I stuck that in Ableton, and then I processed it a little bit, not much, just kind of reduced some of the ambient that was recorded, saturated it, and then came out with this. And I also used it for this response part, because if I unfreeze this and I hit this button, good. I could play my kalimba through Ableton, which I thought was cool. And I'm just doing like some delay and reverb and saturation and stuff to it. But yeah, so I got this little melody doing that. Pretty cool. Anyways, back to this part. Let me quickly show off these layers one by one. So the kalimba. Yep, so we got the kalimba, we got the cowbell, and we got this layer, my favorite layer, with a shit ton of transient shaper on it, and way down on the sustain to just make it like literally just a transient. Kind of a lasery sound, cool. And then finally this like a chug bass from my sample pack. I just chopped it up. And so all together with the sub, the background, and the drums, we got so I kind of already showed this, but for that like response part, I'm omitting the kick here, no kick. So we're just gonna have the vocal kind of glitch us back in. It's like a little pause, you know, ba 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 ba, you know, no kick, holy shit, and then we're just right back into the snare. And all this is these two sounds, like the delay tail. I just wanted to have a little more control and visualization of it. So that's this section, right? And that is gonna, I should mention this also, it's gonna be playing with these lasers being spammed back and forth between the ears. Which if you pay attention to that in context. Like these add a lot, you know, it's a very minimal feature, but doing something like that just makes it sound pretty cool. And then I went over this in my last breakdown, but this perfect white noise, use it everywhere in every song all the time, just to sweep back into drums. Cool. This section is a repeat. I didn't mention this sound. Just use that in like kind of this second part of the call. This song is actually very heavily used in drop 2. But yeah, I think let's look at the switch now. So here we go. Awesome. Yeah, I love that switch up. So what we're doing here to create this transition between basically here to here. Sub drop. Really stretched out vocal. You know, some of the other vocals, different sub notes. So this time we went A, C, and then to the D. We haven't done that yet. Little variation, and then the kalimba is playing a different melody here. E to F. And then in the second part, same notes but in a different way. And the cowbells are also doing different sounds. They're just following that new progression. And then the basses, the chugs. It's like a pretty much just a completely different flow here. And I love that, like, just one right here to insert themselves, you know, like all of a sudden, you know, they're back. It's like this one is just like telling you, hey, you know, I'm about to start talking, so get out of the way. And then this super sick, just part of this like delay that I froze. Yeah, just kind of spammed it, honestly. Queuing out a little too much of the peaks. Yeah, and then, you know, the other, so those are all, I would say, repeating elements that we've already seen in the song, already seen in the drop. But this stuff here in the mid bass group, these sounds, these are new. So this is kind of what makes the switch, you know, completely new section. We have these sounds we have not heard yet anywhere in the whole song. So this is going to be playing like, I think, G to G sharp. Yep, you'll notice G sharp is out of key for D minor, but who cares? It sounds good, and I love going out of key anyways. So we'll go through these real quick layer by layer. It's G rec space. Amping it to give it some color. Really just a lot of high end. This brass sound. And then this Leotric sound. All together through the mid bass group. Which you can see is quite heavily EQ'd, and this doesn't, like, this might look kind of scary, but I don't just sit there like and just do this. Like, this happened throughout the entire creation of the song. I mix as I go, so maybe one day I messed with this knob, you know, maybe did like that. Then the next day I came in and said, oh, hold on, this is way too loud, let's bring this down. And, you know, it just kind of happens over time. So yeah.
Sport mode. Don't
Yeah, so really not much to talk about for this like outro of the drop section. It's just gonna be a lot of these intro elements with the drop drums still. Then we get into this break section. This first 8 bars is gonna be largely similar to the intro of the song. Same thing for the next 8 bars, really, with the addition of this breakbeat that is gonna kind of signify the next section. So if you'll remember, the first time around I had the delay throws. This time I'm just letting it play out. And then this where it says next year, this section is my favorite part of the song. I love doing breakdowns. Like it's like a mini drop in between the 2 drops for me, and I get really creative with them usually, and I love how this one turned out. So I'm sweeping back into things with this vocal that the drop vocal, and we're doing the auto pan thing, like different amounts. Like honestly, all of these parameters, look, auto pan, reverb, EQs, they're all being automated. It's like the same vocal, right? But with all these effects on it, it sounds unique every time. So when like auto pan and then immediately like 100% reverb.
Don't stop.
And for this section, yeah, I got really creative with the drums. So let me play it first here.
Don't stop.
So yeah, I love how this section turned out. It's my favorite part of the song. We're already here at the vocals, so let's just listen to them. These are just largely following the crazy snare pattern I have up above. So honestly, like I just went crazy with glitching them out. There's no process to this. I just started trying things and slowly adding on and adding on. So that's the vocals in this section. What you'll next see is we have like a giant 808 for this section. Pitch bends. The whole time, yeah, I'm going absolutely feral with the pitch bends. Gives it more movement, a bit more character. And this section, it sounds quite large, but it's very minimal. So it's just the vocal, the sub, the same intro, like tension, hold thing, and then, a couple more background layers. And then my favorite part is the drums. And the way that the kick distorts with the sub and everything, man, I love this part. So The kick is not doing anything too crazy. If we just listen to those. What's making this sound pretty cool is this snare. So this one, which I just ripped out of this almond break sample. I'm only using the highs of it. I'm transient shaping to get a whole bunch of punch out of that snare. And this, like, I'm pitching this up one at times. I'm making it do like little fade ins. I'm chopping it super short. And that's what's really giving these drop drums cool movement. You can see I even have a couple of reverse ones here. So all of that plus this break sample kind of keeps the flow, and then this one as well. We'll have some cymbals and one more break here. Really cool breaks. So when you have those drums, you add in the sub and the vocals, you got. All right, guys, so now we're ready for the rebuild, build number 2. Now this is going to be pretty much the same, so I'm not going to go over it. However, drop 2 is quite different. We're going halftime with the drums, and they're like more trap drums. So let me play the drop first, and then I'll start going over things section by section.
Don't stop.
Switch.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy how drop 2 turned out in this song. And you know what? I think I want to stand up. That's nice. It's important to not only sit down all day. But yeah, let's start with the drums here. Same kick, different snare. So we got Sport Snare A01 here, the best snare ever made. I mean, that transient at 440. Sheesh. No, I love, like, I swear, you can't convince me otherwise, but a snare that peaks at A, whether it be 440 or 880, sounds so good. Doing just a little bit of a peak boost there, so it cuts through. Same kick, like I said, and then, yeah, the perks is just going to be more trappy. Cool, so that's the drums. For the side chain, it's going to be using all of the same sounds pretty much. I think there's like one different layer, but it's just a different pattern now. Fuck, where is it? Jesus Christ. So the sub switches up. It starts off the same with this A to C. But then you have the switch and you see these pitch bends. So we're going, let me check. It's going +2 to -2. So what's really happening is the sub is starting at a D and it's ending at an A sharp down here. So for that new pattern, right? So that's that new pattern. Then also this mid bass here that's like pretty wide, doing the same thing. And then one more important layer for this like bass line is this wub sound. And what I've done to this is just used the transposition to go from a D to A sharp. Just gonna match the same thing, right? Now for the fake out, we have this like really limiting EQ. And then it opens up. So it's going to be a lot of the same layers, just different pattern. Namely, the chug bass is just going fast as fuck. Just kind of slotting them in as needed. This new layer here, actually the drop gun basses for my song Where Were You, which is the other song on this EP, so kind of full circle there. So it's those, and then I just chopped them to go really fast. Have some quarter note accentuators. Cool. And then, so as that sub is going down, like boom, boom, the detune filler layers that I have here, so that's like these three, they're actually going up. And then you've seen this laser before, but kind of just slotting that in where needed. Yeah, I'm just kind of doing a lot of like sliding things in where they fit, taking them out where they don't, but reusing most of the same elements from drop one to get this completely new feel for a trap drop.
Don't stop.
Switch.
For the outro, it's the same exact drop drums. They continue. One cool thing I did that I forgot to mention is panning the kick back and forth to lead into the next one. I don't know. I think that sounds pretty cool. And then, like, as I was mentioning in the very beginning, playing around with this, check this vocal.
Don't stop.
But that's pretty much it. I think I forgot to talk about this so I'll do it really quick. Some YouTube tutorial from Sultan way long ago, and over time I've just made it sound how I like it. Don't get me wrong, it was a great it's a great Reese, but I don't know, I've just changed all the parameters on this rack over time and kind of made it my own. And then, yeah, this is like my favorite trick, but shifter on a very low dry wet with the very low fine gives it like a phasiness, so without it, with it, why, I'll show you with like 20%, becomes much more obvious. But yeah, that's pretty much the song. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you haven't heard the whole thing, I guess now you have, but go listen on Spotify or SoundCloud. I'm really proud of this song and the EP, so it'd mean a lot. And yeah, like I said, I plan on doing kind of breakdown videos for my upcoming releases. I think it's fun. I want to briefly talk about mixdown / mastering. Not that I'm any good at it, but I guess I've learned a couple cool things. I used to have like a big old rack with, compressors and this and that, but now for the master, so these three are these aren't doing anything. Span, just visualizing millimeters, visualizer, and restream is how I'm getting the audio to OBS. First thing we have is a Pro Q on linear phase mode. Right now it's on low because I'm recording and it makes it laggy, but if I'm going to be exporting, I put it on high or very high. and I'm just cutting the sides under 200 with a 12 decibel per octave curve. I used to use an EQ8. You can use an EQ8 on the mid-side mode, but the linear phase mode from Pro Q just is a little safer. So that's what I do. This is a great tip if you don't already do it. Cutting lows under like 200 to 250 instantly makes your mix down sound better. This saturator, not very typical of me, but these two sections, like, you know, this crazy one, and then this like intro one, just felt like they needed a little boost, so just 15%. And then the last thing there is a G clip. So effective. Oh, and then, you know, the utility is doing the typical build-up thing: drop the volume, drop the side information, and then bring it right back for the drop. So effectively, it's these three things, and that's my master. Now, my method for making it work with this master, or just how I go about it. Number one is I mix as I go. I get the idea out, then I do like a little mini mix down, obviously EQing things as I add them. You know, I make some progress, I do the second drop, I'll do another little mini mix down, spend an hour tweaking knobs, and then when the song's done, I'll do like one more pass. The kick and snare I clip. They're going over 0 into the master. For the sub, I go right under 0. I don't want the sub to clip, because if the sub is clipping, that's going to distort everything else. So my sub here, the sub stays pretty much at negative 1.8, and that's where I want it. If I push this up to like 3 and we played it with the mix, whole mix is distorted now. If we go right under 0, not distorted. So like literally just at 2 dB, and the whole mix gets distorted. So what I do, kick and snare, clip into the master, and then the G clip kind of takes care of that, puts them back to 0. And then the sub, slot it right under that clipping limit. For me, it's 0 dB, so that it's not, you know, going through any distortion. And then the rest kind of follows. If I know my kick and snare are at 0 and my sub is just under that, that's like my anchor. I don't have to touch that anymore. I know that that's where it's supposed to be. And then everything else follows suit. And I EQ like individually for tracks, but I think of things in groups. So I think of my perks group with all this high end, right? So what do we not want to happen? We don't want the perks to clash with a mid bass. It shouldn't. The mid bass should be much lower. So that's like this. I'm scooping here. I'm scooping here. I'm also scooping at 500. I'm doing a little boost here. And then what you'll see on something like probably the synths group is kind of the opposite. We're not touching this, but we're scooping some of these highs that were prominent from the perks. So I'm not just like aimlessly I'm not aimlessly boosting the perks at 7 and removing them at 7 on the synths group. It's like I'm actually looking at the EQ and seeing which frequency is actually important here. Let's do it really quick. If we look at the perks, like, yeah, grab this and grab this. So right there, that's pretty important, 7K. And I'll find what's the most important, and then I'll boost that if it needs boosting. And then for the other groups where we could have frequencies there that may clash, like let's take the synths. See what I've done here is I've decreased at 7.7. That was important for the perks. And then, you know, there's like a lot of relationships you have to think of. There's the perks with the synths, there's the perks with the mid bass, there's the mid bass with the synths, there's the mid bass with the sub. So take account, throw a bunch of EQs, do one by one, but consider all of the relationships in your mix and see what's important for each one. See them, like I said before, the mid bass one is like it's a little overwhelming. Like, oh my God, so much. How'd you know to do that? How'd you know to do that? Just over time, as the track progresses, I add a point here, add a point there as I see needed. But yeah, that's kind of how I go about it. So that was my breakdown for my song Don't Stop, out now on the Too Fast EP via Badmouth Records. Go listen to it. Hope everyone enjoyed this breakdown. I'll be back with more music soon.